What's going on, everyone, and welcome into Plizont's podcast, filled to the brim with glitchy analysis and freezing cold takes, so cold that they're boiling hot. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Hungry Howie's Baton Rouge. Guys, check out their website for takeout deals and delivery deals. Right now, they've got an awesome special. Get a large one-topping pizza for just $7.99. Thanks again to Hungry Howie's Baton Rouge. Guys, we've been sick for the last probably week, but we're back. Better than ever, ready to go. We're talking college basketball, NBA, and NFL today, as well as our signature Q&A just a few days late. We're going to do it. We've got a lot of questions to answer. Let's go ahead and get into the latest news. So first up, we are going to talk about the most important thing on our board, March Madness. We are in the NCAA tournament through the first two rounds. Guys, check out that ESPN bracket challenge that I opened up. If you're following us on TikTok or Instagram and entered into the bracket challenge, then you have a chance to win 50 whopping schmackaroons. Check it out. It's well worth it. Go see who's on the leaderboard. Even if you're not playing, be sure to hit that follow button, that like button, and make sure that you comment any questions that you have or DM us. We'd love to answer your questions. I am always excited to do our Q&A Fridays, which we are doing today a little late. But let's go ahead and get into the March Madness tournament. We've got the Sweet 16 left. First up, I just want to cover three huge upsets. Princeton over Arizona, Furman over Virginia, and FDU over Purdue. The second 16 seed to beat a number one seed. Pandemonium. Had to shout those guys out. Absolutely phenomenal play. Tobin Anderson, the coach for FDU, just landed the Iona job, so congrats to him. That's what happens when you make madness happen. You get upgraded. So look, let's go ahead and talk about the four best teams left in March Madness. Now, I'm talking also my Final Four, okay? This is not just the four best teams that are getting to the Final Four. These are all based off the regions and whatnot. So first up, top four teams: Alabama, Texas, UConn, and Houston. That's it. I think that UCLA, though, is going to make it to the Final Four. We've got my Final Four: Alabama, Tennessee, UCLA, and Texas. Alabama, out of everyone, has got the easiest path to the Final Four. They had to beat a 16 seed. Then they have to beat San Diego State after they beat Maryland. And then they're probably going to have to play Creighton, I think, in the Elite Eight. I think Alabama is probably a lock to at least get to the national championship. We're going to have to depend on where we're seated in terms of who we play in the Final Four. I think it's probably going to be Texas or UConn. Those guys are big-time matchups in terms of size, strength, and rebounding, which is something that Alabama has struggled with early in the season. But thanks to Charles Bediako, their center, they're doing infinitely better on the physical side of basketball. I love this Alabama team. I really do think that they are going to win the national championship. Right now, I think they're a plus 180 to get to the national championship. And if I were you, I would hammer that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to make it a Plizont lock. Book it, ladies and gentlemen. Alabama is going to the national championship. All right, next up, we are talking NFL news, then NBA news, and then we're going to get into our Q&A. First up, NFL news. I want to shout out two teams that I think are making phenomenal moves to get into a championship window. Now, the Eagles, first up, are already in their championship window, but they are reopening it. I thought it was going to be closed because they had 11 major free agents on defense, but Howie Roseman, he deserves Executive of the Year twice in a row. He won it last year. He should win it this next year. He signed all of the major key pieces back. You know, you've got your Super Bowl core from 2018. You got Lane Johnson, Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham. Outside of Jalen Hurts, that's really all you need to fill out a roster that is filled to the brim with veterans. Not to mention, Darius Slay had originally not requested a trade, but been given permission to seek a trade. Did not find it. They were having contract extension misunderstandings, I guess. And so, guess what? Darius Slay and the Eagles were agreeing to cut Darius Slay. But out of nowhere, Howie Roseman comes in, secures the bag, gives him a $42 million extension. They've re-signed Darius Slay. They're going to keep him for the future. What an awesome building block to build around for the future of that defense. But right now, they are in win-now mode, and they're doing a phenomenal job. The only major losses that I've seen to this Eagle team was Miles Sanders, their running back, and CJ Gardner-Johnson, their safety. Lost both of those guys. That's okay, though, because the Eagles have 2 first-round picks. Should be able to replace those guys. But look, you got your core. You got your star quarterback, your star tackle, your star center, veteran center who leads the offense, your star wide receiver, A.J. Brown. Let's not forget, he is Himothy. Then you've got all of your defensive vets back, plus your star players. This Eagles team is primed to make another run at the Super Bowl, especially because of how weak the NFC is. Now, there is another NFC team, though, that has come out of nowhere to finally make a Super Bowl run outside of their legend Hall of Fame quarterback, and that is the New Orleans Saints. Now, look, they've signed Derek Carr, which, of course, everybody thought that that was an upgrade from their quarterback situation last year. You had a fractured back, Jameis Winston, and the Red Rifle, okay? So I think that Derek Carr is going to lead this team to a Super Bowl because they've got all the offensive pieces that you could need, not to mention a star-studded defense. They've got guys on the secondary, they've got guys in the pass rush, and then last but not least, they've got Demario Davis, who I think is one of the best middle linebackers in all of football. This Saints team is teeming with talent over the last 5 years, in my opinion. One of the most talented rosters by far. This Saints team has got a pretty easy schedule, third-place schedule going into next year. It's going to be a really easy division. The Panthers are probably going to have a young quarterback. The Buccaneers have Baker Mayfield. And the Falcons are looking like they're going to ride with Desmond Ridder. So you can chalk up like 5 wins already for the Saints. Plus, I'm pretty sure they play the AFC South, which has got the Colts, the Texans, and the Titans. I mean, what is that, 3 more wins? 8 wins automatically. You got some gimmies here and there. I think the Saints could easily secure the first seed in the NFL overall. I'm not even just talking about the NFC. I'm talking about the best record in football. So you can go ahead and book that as a Plizont freezing cold take, so cold that it's boiling hot. I love, love, love the Saints next year, but not as much as the Eagles. Now, speaking of the NFC South, we've got Baker Mayfield signing with the Buccaneers. According to his interview on the Rich Eisen show, it looks like Baker Mayfield is going to be in a QB competition next year. I think he's probably going to win the job. And that being said, the Buccaneers are basically chalking it up and saying, let's pick a quarterback next year, which is fine. No disrespect to Baker Mayfield. I think his best chance to win big-time football was with the Cleveland Browns when he was cheap and when the roster was built around him. This Buccaneers roster now is still pretty good, got a lot of weapons on the offensive side and a pretty good pass rush on the defensive side, but it's going to be tough sledding when you have to go up against the Saints twice a year, when you probably have to go up against like either the Eagles, the Cowboys, the 49ers, etc., etc. Look, if Tom Brady can't win with this team, I don't know if Baker Mayfield can win with this team. As a matter of fact, Baker Mayfield cannot win with this team. That's just an update on where these signings are. But speaking of signings, we're going to go ahead and start talking about cutting. Ezekiel Elliott has been cut by the Dallas Cowboys. An absolute great deal for all 3 parties. Now, obviously, a lot of Cowboy fans are so excited about Zeke every year. They think he's going to go off, and he doesn't. It's not his fault. The Cowboys are not built for his type of running. But I'm going to go ahead and give you somebody that's going to sign him, and this is why I think it is good for Ezekiel Elliott. The Buffalo Bills are in the market for a star running back. Devin Singletary is no longer on that team, nor did he bring the production value that Zeke can bring. Josh Allen has got to take a load off on the running game. I think that Zeke can get up there with his former teammate, Connor McGovern, on the Buffalo Bills and tear it up next season and create this dynamic trio between Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and him. Love that for Zeke. Let's talk about the Cowboys. Look, it frees up a lot of cap space for the Cowboys. Get Zeke off the books a couple of years early. But not to mention, this is the most important thing for Tony Pollard. Man, he is my number 1 pick next year if I get a chance. Tony Pollard is an absolute animal. What makes him so good in this Cowboys offense is he's not like Zeke. Zeke is a downhill between the tackles running back. Tony Pollard is an everything back. He can catch it. He can run outside the tackles. He can take it in between the tackles. He can take it right up the gut. I love Tony Pollard. I think he's going to have an awesome season next year. So, honestly, Zeke getting cut, like I said, best for everyone. But now that we've talked about a deal that was good for all parties, let's talk about a deal that was bad for two parties. And that is Darren Waller getting traded from the Raiders to the Giants for a third round pick. Now, Darren Waller married, not in secret, but it was pretty unannounced that he was going to marry Las Vegas Aces guard Kelsey Plum. They got married in Vegas, but apparently the information got leaked a few days early by none other than Las Vegas Raiders head coach Josh McDaniel. Have no idea how that happens or how that, gets into the air. Apparently he wasn't invited. Not really sure what that's about, but Darren Waller was pissed about it, went off on Josh McDaniels reportedly, and then gets traded 2 weeks later to the Giants for a third round pick. Now, Waller has not had the most productive seasons in the last 2 seasons, but that's almost all due to injury. I think he's going to tear it up for the Giants, but who is this deal bad for? It's bad for the Raiders. You just traded a top 3 tight end for a third round pick, and it's bad for Darren Waller because he just got traded away from his wife. That sucks. I don't even know what I would do if I was a professional athlete. I just got married, and then I'm getting shipped off to the other side of the country. I'm sure they'll make it work. So congratulations to Waller and Plum. That's awesome. Good luck on marrying each other and then moving worlds away. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into this next bit of news. Jalen Carter is having a disaster. I mean, just quite frankly, I don't even know how to describe it. The man goes to the combine, okay? There was a huge story about a Georgia player right after the national championship game getting into a car accident and dying. According to police interviews, Carter claims that he was over a mile away when it happened. Turns out that was not true. The police charged him with, I think, reckless driving and street racing or something like that, misdemeanor charges. But as Carter is at the combine, he has to go back to Georgia to get arrested, get booked, get indicted, and then go back up to Indianapolis. He did not work out or anything along those lines. He was going to do it all at his Georgia Pro Day. This is where we're getting to. He pled no contest to his charges, which basically means that he's not going to put up a fight. And I think it's accepting guilt, but I'm not 100% on that. You have to look that up. It's obviously the law, and I'm not an absolute expert on that. But let's move on. So he pleads no contest. Georgia Pro Day comes around. This is going to be his day to show everybody in the world that no matter what all these controversies are going on, he is the number one guy. Carter shows up 9 pounds more than he was at the combine and has to stop drills, stop the workout early because he was overweight, breathing heavily, sweating, and cramping. Look, he was going to probably be not the number one pick now because the Panthers have the number one pick and they're taking a quarterback, but he was going to be a top 5 pick. He might drop out of the top 10 now, costing him millions of dollars. Was all of this worth it? Probably not. But the thing that I want to emphasize is this is a young man that we're talking about. I think he's 22, maybe, probably 21, maybe 22. Regardless, young men make mistakes. It is okay. But the big thing is that you have to suffer the consequences for your actions. Not everything is given or handed out to you. I'm sure that he's learned that through all of his hard work in football. I hope that he can put it together for an NFL career. Honestly, right now is probably a better time to learn these lessons than when he's 26 and 27 and already in the middle of these $1 million deals. It's probably better for him to lose these few $1 million on the front end and learn a lesson so that later on when the big bucks come around, he's not missing out on them. So I hope that Jalen Carter gets it together. I am rooting for him. I think he's going to do great in the NFL. Whoever gets him, as long as he can become like a mature adult, they're going to get a star, I think. I've looked at all of his tape. He might be better than Will Anderson, who I have touted as the best prospect in this class for months and months and months. Carter might just be that guy to dethrone him as the best prospect. Huge buyer of him. Like I said, whoever gets him, as long as he gets his act together, they're going to get a steal. Now, speaking of getting in trouble, maturity issues, and this, that, and the other, let's talk about Ja Morant, who is going to be returning, I think, tonight for the Memphis Grizzlies. He had all of this drama. I think you guys know what has been going on, talking about beating up a teenager allegedly, pointing a gun into another team's bus allegedly, but not allegedly, blowing like 50 grand in a strip club and touting a gun on Instagram Live. He says he deals with all of these anxiety issues and that is why he acts out like this, which that is completely fine. Another young man making young man mistakes, but he said that he went to a Florida counseling center to learn how to cope with this, and he did it all within maybe a week or maybe 2 weeks. Now, for those of you who have been in therapy or thought about going to therapy or have just heard about therapy, it's not a 2-week ordeal, especially when you're dealing with major anxiety issues, possible family trauma, possible academic or financial problems, etc., etc. It is a huge deal to go to therapy to work on yourself. I commend people who do that. I think it is very courageous and brave to do that, but I promise you this, it's not a 2-week ordeal. There are very rare circumstances where you could just go in and say, this is it, I know how to fix it, I'm done, snap your finger, and you're done. So I think that Ja Morant is going to get this together. However, for long-term sustained success, it's going to take a lot more hard work on his end. You've already got other problems on the Grizzlies like Dylan Brooks, 18 technicals into this season. Every second technical is another game suspension. He's been fined hundreds of thousands of dollars. The coach does not seem to have the Grizzlies on lock. However, I do think that this Grizzlies team is a playoff threat. I have said that they're not in the past, but after seeing what they do at home without Ja Morant, I'm a huge buyer of what this Grizzlies team could do in the playoffs. The Kings, now, that's what we're going to talk about when we're talking about playoff success. Let's talk about the Sacramento Kings. They have secured their first winning season since like 2006. I don't even know how you go that long without playing winning basketball, but congratulations to the Sacramento Kings. Right now, they have the best offense, the record-breaking pace, averaging the most points per game out of any team in modern NBA history. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are having record-setting years. Look, everybody thought that trade, Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis, was a terrible trade. I don't want to say I said that it was because I didn't say it on record, but I said that it was. I love that trade. I actually went and watched Sabonis and Fox play in one of their first games together last year versus the Pelicans in person. Sabonis was an absolute dog, as he always is. And to be honest, guys, I am starting to buy in to the light the beam culture. Big fan. Still don't think that they're a playoff team, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Now let's get into our Q&A. All right, so first question up, we've got, are the Suns contenders when Kevin Durant comes back? My answer, a Plizont freezing cold take, so cold that it's boiling hot. The Suns are a first-round bounce with Kevin Durant coming back. I think that they're going to play the Golden State Warriors in the first round, and if Andrew Wiggins can come back, that is a huge if, but if he can come back, the Warriors will beat the Suns in the first round. I am not a buyer of this Phoenix Suns team right now. Kevin Durant is taking his time to come back from his injury, which he should. Suns have no chemistry and also no depth. When Damian Lee is like your sixth-man player, then you've got a problem. No disrespect to Damian Lee, obviously, but he is not the caliber player that you're looking for to come off the bench and feed your team like a Jordan Poole would be for the Warriors. Now, look, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Andrew Wiggins, Draymond Green, and Kevon Looney, the best statistical lineup this season, last season, and the season before. When you play those five guys, they are absolutely phenomenal. I'm a huge buyer of what the Warriors can bring with that lineup. Then you've got Dante DiVincenzo and Jordan Poole off the bench, Moses Moody, and maybe Gary Payton. That's a 9-stack right there. And we're not even talking other role players like Anthony Lamb to go on. Like, all of these Warriors players are not like the best they've ever been in terms of their prime, but their chemistry is what matters. That's what the Suns lack. I'm not buying into the Suns team. I think that the Suns are getting bounced. You can go ahead and book it as a Plizont freezing cold take. All right, next question. Are the Lakers a playoff lock? And is LeBron James due for the greatest comeback story in NBA history? First answer, I think the Lakers are a playoff lock. All they have to do is get into the play-in, and I think that they're solid. But if LeBron cannot come back healthy, I don't buy that the Lakers can get anywhere without him. There have been rumors that he's going to get shut down for the regular season. There have been rumors that he's probably not going to be 100% healthy when he comes back or if he comes back. If he does, man, the Lakers are going to look good. But as of right now, I'm going to go ahead and kind of pull back on my original take because he's probably not going to come back healthy. I don't know if they can beat a Nuggets team or a Kings team if LeBron is not 100%. So do I buy the Lakers as a playoff team? Absolutely. Will LeBron have the greatest comeback in NBA history? Probably not. All right, next question I've got here is, are the Kansas City Chiefs building around Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce like Rob Gronkowski and Tom Brady with the Patriots? My answer is shocking, but the answer is absolutely not. The only thing the Chiefs care about, in my opinion, is having Patrick Mahomes out there and having an offensive line to protect him. Why do I say that? Now, obviously, having Travis Kelce there is a huge positive, huge plus, greatest tight end of all time. But think about who Patrick Mahomes was throwing to and handing the ball off to last year in the Super Bowl. Sky Moore, Kadarius Toney, and Isaiah Pacheco. It's not that they're nobodies. It's not that they're not good enough players, but they are not the caliber players like a Tyreek Hill, who the Chiefs traded away. What the Chiefs are trying to do is create a plethora of space to hit on young and cheap players. That is all that matters because they can pay Patrick Mahomes whatever they want. Next year, he's getting, I think, close to $60 million. So I am a huge believer that the Chiefs are just solely going in on Patrick Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes alone, maybe getting him some protection, but that's about it. All right, so these next few questions are going to branch completely off of what we usually talk about. First up, I want to talk about MLB baseball. Is the pitch clock good for the MLB? I don't watch a lot of MLB. I played baseball for 11 years, all like rec league. I think maybe 1 year of travel ball, but I'm pretty sure it was all rec league, okay? Nothing serious, very casual, not a big baseball watcher on a TV. But I am a big fan of the pitch clock, and I will probably be watching some baseball this year. Now, the reason I say that is because look at all these other leagues that are getting more and more popular. The NFL, the NBA, the UFC. What do all three of those leagues do so well now that they struggled with in the past? Pace, offense, high-powered stuff. The faster this game goes along, the more action-packed within a small, tiny bit of time. Think about everything that you do during your day. You watch TikToks or YouTube shorts or YouTube videos. These are small clips of massive amounts of action and information. That is what society is like heavily leaning towards. I'm a huge buyer of the pitch clock. If this game goes faster and it gets more and more entertaining, I'm all for it. The only downside that I can see to it is that it's going to be maybe hard on the batters at first to get into the rhythm. And that's probably going to lead to some low-scoring games, which I'm not a fan of in the MLB. But if they could get the hang of it and get it down to a science, maybe even create a rhythm within the pitch clock, then I definitely think that the MLB is striking gold with this move. Big fan of the pitch clock. I know a lot of baseball purists out there are not, but if they wanted the purest form of baseball, then baseball probably won't exist for much longer because there are a lot of people not watching it anymore. Their ratings are plummeting. Their playoffs are being overshadowed by the NFL, the NBA, and college football. They got to do something about it. So I am all for this proactive move. Next question. European soccer question. Not an expert, never watched it. I did a lot of research into this question because I care about answering your questions to the best of my ability. These are just my thoughts, no expert opinion. Here's the question. Does Graham Potter's backing from the players and the media save his job with Chelsea? Now look, strictly based on his record from his previous jobs, I didn't think he deserved it in the first place. Right now, the last time that I looked, Chelsea has a below 45% win percentage with him as the manager. With a team like Chelsea, a club like Chelsea, how's that possible? Now, they're not the best team in England or UK or whatever. I am not a huge fan of this guy in terms of his coaching style. According to a lot of reports, he kind of has a different approach because he's a younger guy. People are describing him as players coach. Players coaches don't really win. I can't think of a single players coach in any professional league that I watch, I'm trying to think as I'm talking right now, that has sustained success. Now, every now and then you get a Mike Tomlin, who is described as a player's guy, who wins a Super Bowl back in 2010 because he had one of the greatest defenses of all time. Can that sustained success happen over time, though? As we've seen, he keeps having winning records, but no playoff success. So if I was Chelsea, I would put Potter probably on a seat that is so cold that it's boiling hot. He has got to win versus clubs like Everton. Cannot lose or draw. You got to get the win. And then you've got to be at least competitive against the top tier clubs. If he can't do that, it's time to cut bait. They spent a ton of money getting a lot of talent in Chelsea. So if he can't win with that, then he's probably not the coach for top tier European clubs. Not a big fan. If I was the Chelsea owners, I would probably already have fired him. If he cannot pull it off this season, let him go. All right, now these last two questions are probably my two favorite questions that I've ever done in a Q&A. They are from some very loyal and loving fans. Much appreciated. First question up is, what are the pros and cons of being a free agent in the NBA and the NFL? First up, the pros, okay? You can have a financial payday. It is an awesome experience to be a free agent and get max money or a max contract. You have your ego boosted. You have your valuation reset. You can get all this praise in the media for all these deals. But most importantly, as a collective, it resets the market for players after you. So being a free agent is a pro because you have the backing of the players themselves. Let's take a look at a situation right now where we have a restricted free agent in Lamar Jackson. The biggest pushers for Lamar Jackson to get a Deshaun Watson type deal, which is a ton of money that's fully guaranteed over a long period of time, is not Lamar Jackson. It's the NFL Players Association. Why? Because they want to reset the market. So as a free agent, you can be a leader. You can be that guy who resets the market and gets other players more money. So that's courageous work. But here are the cons. When you go into free agency, you could be undervalued. You could get scammed by the rest of the league. You could lose a lot of money off and on the table. Doesn't matter. If you go to a different team, the fit might not be the same. Take another look at Lamar Jackson right now. He has been going back and forth with contract extensions, and the Ravens basically called his bluff and said, hey, go find another team who wants you. And right now, there is not a single team who is making an absolute push for Lamar Jackson, which I didn't see coming. I'm guessing the Ravens did because they called his bluff, but now he's going to probably lose a lot of money. That's bad for him. It's bad for the Players Association, so on and so forth. So those are kind of the pros and cons. It's basically being a free agent is you're betting on yourself. And that is probably one of the best things that you can do in sports, in the sports industry, or in life in general. So I am a big fan of free agency being an option because more times than not, it's good for star players to get out there and reset the market. All right, last but not least, this is probably the biggest question that I will answer in all of my Q&As. Let's go ahead and get into it. The question is, what is the biggest systemic issue in sports? It's not advertising, not collective bargaining agreements. It's not behind the door deals or under the table deals or whatever. It is just money in general. Money is probably the biggest plague in sports. I'm going to give you 4 reasons why. Number 4 being least important, number 1 being most important. Number 4 hurts competition. Really hard for the Pelicans to compete on a Los Angeles Lakers style level at a sustained time. When you think about it, the Pelicans and the Lakers, yes, are pretty much dead set even right now, but the Lakers are missing LeBron James, and they're going to have a lot of money and a lot of luxury tax to spend on grabbing a really, really good player in the offseason. I'm betting they're probably going to be a lot better than the Pelicans next year. That is the common case. You don't see a lot of Milwaukee Bucks teams winning championships. Think about it. Giannis has been there for, I think, 8 years. They've been to 1 finals. And before that, they hadn't won a finals since, I think, the 70s. So really, really hard for these small market teams to create sustained success because they don't have the capabilities financially to compete with these other teams. Think about the NFL and the NBA. Biggest brands, Lakers, Celtics, Patriots, 49ers, Cowboys, Knicks. lots and lots of sustained success over time. You don't see that happening in Kansas City, who is having sustained success right now because they have the best player in football. Not because they can afford to pay what the Cowboys can pay, but because they hit the absolute lottery getting Patrick Mahomes. So, like I said, money is plaguing competition. Small market teams can't compete on the level of big market teams. Number 3, salaries are going up, TV deals are going up, everything's becoming more expensive, but the thing that is becoming the most expensive is tickets, fan stuff, all of your gear, your jerseys, your cards, all that stuff. It's becoming extremely expensive, and it's hurting small market, not franchises, but fans, blue collar fans. Look, I went to an NBA game the other day. I'm not making the big bucks, okay? I'm not making 6 figures or anything like that. I went to a game. I got some nosebleeds. I got nosebleeds for me, my wife, and a friend. We bought food and we paid for parking, and it ended up probably costing about $180. The tickets, all in all, were about $90. The food was, I think, about $30. The parking and the gas ended up probably being about another $30. I can't really do math. Okay, don't quote me on that. But whatever that total was, is a lot more than you would think it should be. I'm not talking about like Ticketmaster jacking up prices. Those are the standard box office prices. And I went to a Pelicans game. They're a 13 seed right now. And they played the Thunder, who was at the time an 11 seed. We're not talking about a premium pound for pound fight here, okay? The prices are getting ridiculous. The cheapest tickets that you see to go to the Super Bowl are in the thousands and thousands of dollars. The common person cannot afford those things. It's hurting sports because you don't get the relatability aspect. You get it all on your TV. Not a big fan of the virtual stuff, but at the same time, look, I am a watch the game on TV person, but it's just getting harder and harder for fans to get like one-on-one, like person-to-person contact with these stars, organizations, executives, etc., because the money is going through the roof. Now, number 2, might be number 3. You can interchange these two, but it is pretty dehumanizing to all these players. Every time you look at a player, you think of what's their contract, or if they were traded for somebody, just what's their value as a number, or etc. You could talk about that in any kind of way, but mainly you're looking at the dollar value. Think Russell Westbrook with the Lakers. Making $40-something million a year, was not producing up to that valuation. So guess what? Everybody started dogging him. And Russell Westbrook, from what I understand, is a wonderful human being, a great father who has a wife and kids. He is an awesome human being, charitable, kind, a good teammate. But everybody and their mother in the media, on social media, dogged him because they were looking at a number. To me, that takes all of the good parts of sports out and subs it in with this false sense of financial backing or whatever to create some kind of intermediate happiness. Now, speaking of intermediate happiness, money, and dehumanizing, I'm talking about gambling. Now, I have gambled myself. I give my Plizont locks. But a lot of people take it to another extent. They start to dehumanize these players because they didn't hit their parlay or et cetera. I've done it. I've been mad at players for not getting points or rebounds or whatever, or teams not covering. They're human beings, okay? People make mistakes. The game is the game, okay? They play the game. They're not thinking about, I got to score 20 points to hit Plizont's parlay. If he doesn't hit it, I don't know what he'll do. That's not their problem. It's not their fault. It's not in their contract to score this amount of points or to do this and that. Those are all incentive-based. It's based off of whether or not they can get them when the time comes. But they are human beings. We should not be treating them in the way that we do. But that's aside from the fact when we look at them as people, we think mainly of their contracts and if they're a good bet. Not a fan, but my most important reason, by far, is women's sports is going to never catch up to men's sports because of money. Talk about the WNBA. The WNBA, I'm pretty sure, not 1,000% sure, but runs at a loss every single year. The NBA gives the WNBA money. You'll have to fact check me on that, but I'm pretty sure The WNBA doesn't get the TV ratings, the ad deals, and that reflects when you talk about women getting paid, women getting TV time, and so on and so forth. I think you've got to get the money aspect out of that to make women's sports as competitive or advertise it as such, okay? When you talk about, women's basketball specifically, I'll talk basketball for now, versus men's basketball, obviously there's a different type of athleticism and physicality that goes into men's athleticism versus women's athleticism. But when you talk about the game itself and providing entertainment value, there's no reason that it can't be as entertaining. You've got competition. That's what matters. Now, the levels of competition you could argue are different, but for girls watching girl sports or men's watching men's sports, it's basically the same thing. And that's why I don't understand why people won't just try to pull money out of the conversation when it comes to women's sports versus men's sports. Because if you go watch like LSU basketball, they're pretty damn good. And they just set a record for most attendance in LSU men's or women's basketball history. But a lot of people aren't talking about that because they don't get the TV ratings that men's basketball or March Madness gets, which goes back to this money thing. If you could somehow figure out how to get money out of the conversation in sports, then you would have a lot more women's sports being promoted infinitely higher. There are so many women's sports fans, but they don't have a voice because they don't get the option to communicate that outside of their dollar values. So that being said, that is going to do it today for Plizont's podcast. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.